So we are back again, you guys. We're gonna try to get this engine bay as complete as we can today. I, of course, forgot my power steering bracket at the house. It's whatever, it's not a big deal. I don't need to put that pump in right now. So I did remember to grab the coolant banjo fitting that I needed for the turbo down here. So we got this line all installed. So I wanna start today off by getting the turbo installed, getting the turbo support bracket on, getting the downpipe on, and just kind of starting to fill out the engine bay from there. We have some gauges to run. There's a ton of stuff. We might actually start on the fuel system, the engine harness, all that kind of fun stuff too today. We'll see. But for now, I wanna get that turbo installed, get that turbo support bracket on there, so that way we can get the downpipe on, start figuring out the turbo inlet and things like that. On the table here, this is the turbo that we are going to be using. This is a Grimspeed BB500. Comes with the turbo, the coolant lines, oil feed lines, coolant fittings, all this fun stuff here. So I ran this turbo once, but never really got to experience it all that much. So we're gonna actually be able to experience it this time. I wanna say it's a 9-wheel compressor, ball bearing turbocharger, 15 PSI internal wastegate spring. So we should be able to do decent power on this. On our JB400 that I used to have on my 14 WRX, we were able to do about 450 wheel on that thing. It made great power. So I'm curious to see what this BB500 will do on this setup with our built heads, stock block, Cosworth manifold, all the fun stuff. So let me go ahead and get this turbo assembled, and by assembled I mean let me just get the coolant lines on, put our OEM return line on there, brand new one, so that way we can just drop this thing in, get it bolted down, get our turbo support bracket on, and then we can actually get our downpipe on after that. I'll tighten all these down once we actually get the turbo in the car, but it's a little bit easier to get them all started. Well, it's on the table here. Actually, I'm gonna leave this one off for now, so that way I'm able to hit this bolt right here, because that one is always a pain to try to get on there. So for now, I'll leave that one off. I'm gonna leave this water line on. So let me actually grab our gasket and let's go install the turbo. Turbo gasket will go on right there. Bracket, where'd it go? I'll at least get the bracket on and started, so that way it's already kind of in the vicinity, because it's just going to be a nightmare to try to do it any other way. Now I've got the turbo support bracket actually started, so we can get the turbo on there, and then once we get the turbo where we want it, we can move that bracket around a little bit. But I have a feeling it's going to want to go that way. There we go. What I'm about to add on here is completely unnecessary, but I'm gonna do it anyways, just because I have them. If you guys don't know what these are Nord locks, and I use these on a lot of my cars. I just happen to have some extras. They essentially make it so the turbo nuts can't vibrate back out. So they use friction to lock against each other like wedges. I just happen to have some extras, so if they fit, figure why not use them? Couldn't tell you why, but so see, we want our turbo to sit right about there. Because if you just like bolted up your intake or your exhaust manifold and everything, there's a good amount of play here and where the turbo can actually sit. Obviously you don't want it smacked up against the engine or covering that, but you can get some like coverage there to be able to get this thing where you want it, so that way it gives you as much room. I see a lot of people try to install bigger turbos on these cars, and they'll tighten down the up pipe first, and then their turbo will be like pointing directly at this. You guys can see if I covered that, it would go right into it. But if I actually put it where I need it, about right there, it clears the TGV housing by a mile. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. You have adjustability in this. It's not like wherever you bolt it down and it lands is where it's gonna be forever. You can move things around to a degree, so put it in your front pocket if you want. Put it wherever you want, all right? Who am I to tell you what to do? I'm not your dad. Could be your dad. Am I old enough to be your dad? Probably not. Unless I was like a baller when I was a kid, but you know what, I wasn't. So the order in which we're going to bolt all this down in together, okay? We're gonna do the turbo to the up pipe first, because there's not a whole lot of adjustability. So we're obviously going to want it to be we're gonna find our turbo location. So we want our turbo to be right about there. I'm gonna go ahead and bolt down turbo support bracket first, right here. Now while I'm holding this where I want it, I'm gonna start tightening everything down. Could I push that over more if I want? Yes, but then we start hitting the engine and we don't want that. So we're gonna be fine, but we'll probably go right there so we have a small air gap. We have a decent gap here and the turbo is already pointing away from the TGV housing. So we're just gonna kind of hold it steady there. That is pretty good actually. So now that we got the turbo where we want it, we're gonna go ahead and go, I wanna make sure that we're not touching the engine, which we also are not. So yeah, we're perfect right there. I'm gonna go down under the car. We're gonna tighten the up pipe to the exhaust manifold now, and that may shift the turbo a little bit more, but we're gonna try to keep it kind of where it's at. Now here's one of the more crappy things with Tomeis. It's the fact that they use a 3-bolt design, and it is kind of god awful to have to try to tighten these guys with. All right, there's. Dude, turbo is like perfectly aligned with that intake manifold right there. Now there is one downside. I had a Killer Bee hard inlet I was gonna be using on this, but I can't use it with the Cosworth because it hits right here on the corner and it lifts up the whole Cosworth like that. So I just ordered a Perrin 2.4 inch that'll fit perfectly through there. It's soft, so if it needs to squish down a little bit, definitely can. Obviously that's not ideal for flow, but I mean, that sacrifices with stock location turbos. And this manifold isn't the best flowing manifold out there. I just want this manifold. I like this manifold. I've wanted this manifold for a long time. So damn it, I'm using this manifold. But as you guys can see, we got our turbo all bolted up here, not going anywhere. Got our coolant line on, our lower coolant line on going up to there. I also realized there's nowhere for an expansion tank to go right here, so I might buy the IAG one that relocates it to over here, but we'll see about that later. Now that we have our turbo on, we can actually go ahead and throw our downpipe on, so that's the next thing we're actually gonna do. So for downpipes, we are running my go-to. This is a Cobb catted downpipe. I personally prefer these. They fit the best, they look the best, they perform fantastic. They have an additional O2 sensor bung here for a wideband. They have a cast bell mouth to a stainless steel actual flange with a Gessie catalytic converter. A lot of people ask if they can go catless. Technically speaking, yes you can, but I don't advise it. There's just no need. Those catalytic converters so flow well that you're gonna see a negligible horsepower difference on a stock location turbo setup. If you're shooting for the moon on a stock location turbo, you're probably not gonna be using a catted downpipe, but for any street car, this is more than sufficient for what you're going to need. So one of the big things I actually love about this downpipe is Cobb actually puts recessions in the downpipe, so that way you can actually get hardware on. I've seen a handful of catless eBay ones where they don't do that, and it's so freaking hard to try to get the hardware on. So I've already got a Grimspeed MLS gasket on our turbo here, so we can go ahead and get our downpipe on, bolt it on, hook it up to our catback, and then we have pretty much our exhaust system done. It makes it so nice when you don't have an external wastegate or anything to worry about. Transmission hanger. Put the zip tie now. There we go. Ooh, look at this thing. So we got beautiful fitment on our downpipe here coming off the turbo. Like I said, dude, the Cobb one, it fits so well. The finish is nice on it. We have that nice G Sport cat. Hooks up to our cat back here. Everything feels a lot more stable. Coming back to our cat back that we put in last video. Coming back to the HKS. Like I said, I still might order. I don't know, dude. That's actually kind of right where I want it now. Maybe we'll leave that. Maybe I won't get new exhaust hangers, but pretty happy with all this. So now that we have our turbo and catback. Oh, one more thing I want to mention. Don't forget the oil drain coming off the turbo to the block. As you guys can see right there, that axle's just nasty. I gotta fix that. It's actually, does it popping out? Might be popping out a little bit. I gotta fix that inner axle seal. I have a sundial tool also from Company 23, so we can pop that off. It's not gonna be a fun time, but we gotta do it. But anyways, turbo's on, downpipe's on, oil return drain is on. We're all good there. So we're gonna jump into something that kind of confuses a lot of people, and that's the PCV system on this car. A lot of people like to overcomplicate it. I promise it's not that complicated. So let me get this Cosworth out of here right now, so that way we can get some room in here and I can show you guys. When it comes to Subaru PCV systems, they're not too bad. You've got this crossover breather here. This crossover breather connects the center of the engine here to this cylinder head and this cylinder head off the rear port. So you're gonna have a line that comes up off this rear port to this fitting here. You're gonna have a line that comes off this port to that fitting over there. So let's actually just start with that, and I'll try to walk you guys through this. Mine's gonna be modified because we are about to put on an IAG AOS, but I can kind of still walk you through some of this. So if you're doing this and you're replacing the hose for this side is part number 99071AB333. It's gonna be like this fun looking hose, and it's gonna go up on that guy there, and then connect it to the cylinder head. I actually bought some clamps for this, so let me get those so I can actually clamp these down, because these can actually stay on. Or clamp on, slide you back on. Come on. Oh, okay, I am able to do it with the normal pair of pliers. That's awesome. All right, so that's gonna go on like that, and then the other end's gonna go over here to the other side. I'm gonna use clamps that I can take on and off, so if I have to service the valve cover at any point, I can take this hose off and not have to deal with a one-time use clamp like we have on that side. Now we're gonna do the other hose on this side. So it should come off like that, and then wrap around back here to our cylinder head. So I have another one of these one-time use clamps we're gonna put on the hose side right here. That's gonna go on that. So like I said, one-time use clamps, I will use them on this side. On the head side, I will not. There we go. Woo! This is one of the benefits to daily uploads for you guys, since I keep the videos the same length to get more information in them. So for this crossover tube here, you've got one hose that goes down to the block in the very middle. It's gonna come up to this tube. You're gonna have this one that wraps up and around, and it's gonna go to the rearmost port on the cylinder head. On this side, you're gonna have the same thing. It's gonna come up and around, go to the rearmost port on the cylinder head. The whole point of that is to equalize pressure between head, and block. So that way you're not seeing a pressure differential across the engine. So that's just there to equalize. This other line here is for coolant. This goes to your coolant expansion tank up here. So now that we've got that portion of the PCV system done, all we have left is right here, and that's going to go to our AOS, which we'll get to in a minute. So let me go ahead and start unboxing our IAG AOS here. We've got a nice black IAG AOS in here somewhere under all those hoses, and we can start running through that a little bit. I'm not gonna do a full install on that because I've shown you guys how to install those, and we're not gonna fully install it yet, but we're gonna start to get it going. In that kit, you should have this big giant fitting here and this like Y fitting. So those two are gonna go together. You know what, that's in enough, I guess. It's in enough. So you're gonna have this guy. This is gonna go on that fitting on the block that I just pointed out. So we're gonna go ahead and toss on. I also don't know if I can do, I should be able to do these without the special tool, hang on. Oh yeah, you can do these ones without a special tool. So you're gonna put that clamp on there. If you can get this clamp on the other side on the block, good luck with it. Normally, if I am gonna put this clamp on, I'll do it with the engine out. So I'll give it a try with this one. If not, it's not the end of the world, and I'll just put a normal clamp on there. But we're gonna go ahead and get this fitting on the block, and this is going to be what ties our AOS into our PCV system. So this fitting is going to go on this portion of the engine with the Y facing towards the back of the car. We'll rotate that so it's facing with the Y towards the back. This fitting here acts as your oil drain and your vent. Y piece is gonna be your oil drain to the AOS. That's gonna go to the bottommost hose. This top one is gonna be your vent. So we can go ahead and actually start hooking up the AOS. I do have a competition conversion coming for mine, just because since I'm using the Cosworth manifold, I can't really vent anything back into the engine. So this guy, move these lines out of the way a little bit, slide underneath of that bracket, grab our 10. AOS mounted up. We're not gonna worry about these coolant lines too much right now. I'm kind of just gonna tuck them out of the way for the time being. This one is going to wrap around and come up here to the turbo. So we're gonna do this bottom one here over to the vent on the top, and then the very bottom one down here to the oil return here. So we're gonna end up tying them around these AC lines to keep them away from the downpipe and the turbo here. So get around and get it on the AOS right there. So we got our one line there. So now for the rest of the PCV system, it's pretty easy. You've got this port here, which is gonna come over to the driver's side head on the forwardmost port. And then this top one is gonna wrap around and go to the passenger side forwardmost port on the head. So just to give you guys a quick rundown on the PCV system one more time. Crossover breather goes to the middle of the block. This line goes to the rearmost portion of the head. This one goes to the rearmost portion of the head. These two lines on the AOS, one goes to each side of the head. To be honest, it really doesn't matter. This one's gonna come off and go down to this guy here. And then that one I haven't done yet, which is the oil return. That's gonna loop up, go to the bottom of the block, go to the bottom of the AOS right there. So I'll do that later. I gotta pull the AOS off anyways. So I mentioned it before, I did go ahead and buy a brand new 07 STI engine harness for this thing. It's just like any car that's like 10 years old, especially Subarus, man, the heat from the engine bay just brittles these things into like popsicle sticks. So I'm gonna remove this rubber guard that normally would bolt to the intake manifold, because we're not gonna be using that. Obviously, since we have the Cosworth manifold, there's nothing on the bottom for that thing to bolt to. So we're gonna remove the plastic guard, then we'll get this thing in. Then we got our electronics pretty much in here also. And then at that point, it's just the fuel system, a couple little covers for these AVCS guys, couple other small things, and this thing should be ready to fire up. Boom, that is where we are stopping tonight. Pretty happy with the progress on this. We got our engine harness in. I also tossed in our oil pressure sensor. Normally I like to remote mount these, but for this, I'm gonna just give it a test and see how it does. Turbo in, up pipe permanently bolted down, down pipe in, AOS hooked up, engine harness in. The engine harness took me a little bit longer than I wanted to because I had to finoodle it around a little bit. But overall, dude, I'm pumped with how the progress on this thing's coming out. This is probably one of the more quicker builds we've done on the channel. This thing is almost ready to start. I went through all my Dash 6 AN fittings to see what I have, see what I don't have, see what I need to order. So I need to order some fittings to be able to build our fuel system, but that's not a big deal. I'll order those tonight. We have our fuel pressure regulator, fuel pressure gauge back there, so shouldn't be too bad. I am excited to see what this thing is gonna look like once everything is assembled. I'm very curious to see how it'll sound also. And it is looking already like 100 times better from the front end. I'm gonna swing over to Griot's Garage probably in the next couple of days and snag one of their headlight restoration kits for these guys to try to clean those things up, clean them up at least a decent bit. They're very, very hazy. We'll get our rear flares on. I got the new wheels in for the RX-7, so I need to take the Regamasters off the RX-7, buy tires for this, get tires installed on the Regamasters. The Regamasters will go on this. After this thing's running and driving, even if it's just on a base tune, we're gonna send it out to paint. I'm gonna have them repaint the front bumper. I'm gonna have the flares painted, and I'm gonna have them just kind of fix up any areas on the car that they see that may need fixed up. We have a Cybon vented hood coming. That is going to be painted painted as well with the carbon vents exposed. So this thing's gonna look really good when it's done. Just trust the process. I have not let you guys down yet, except for maybe on the taxi, but a lot of people, I like the taxi. I thought the taxi was cool. But regardless of the fact, just give it time. It'll be probably one of the dopest Hawkeyes you see when I'm done with it, and it's just gonna get better over time. It's like a fine wine. In the next video, we're gonna continue knocking out stuff here. I've been able to condense everything down to one shelf now, which is awesome. I think in the next video, we're gonna jump over and do our AEM gauges, our SMY gauge pod, and maybe a couple, we'll probably just clean up the rest of the interior, get the fuel pump installed, get the back seats put back in, maybe clean out the interior as well, because it's kind of gross. After that, because I'm still waiting for some engine stuff to show up, after that, I think we'll jump over to the drivetrain. I have some torque solutions, U-shifter down here, the bushing, Cartboy short shifter, Cartboy short shifter bushings, Group N engine mount, whole bunch of stuff. We need to get our battery mounted up also. So we're getting there. We're almost through the easy stuff. Like I consider all this the easy stuff because it all just drops in, all just bolts in. It's super easy to do. Everything else we're kind of gonna have to do a little bit of a custom stuff. So it won't be a big deal. I'm happy with how this thing is looking, dude. That Cosworth manifold. Some people were asking me if it flows better than other ones. Not necessarily, no, it's just a nostalgia thing for me. Ever since I got into Subarus, Cosworth manifolds were something I've always wanted, so I finally had the opportunity to get one, so obviously we did. That's all I got for you guys on this one. I'm gonna get the RX-7 pushed back in here, jet out of here. I hope you guys are enjoying these daily uploads. Like I said, because I don't have as much time to shoot the videos, I'm trying to put more information into the videos for you guys. Kind of like what we did with like the PCV system. If that's more stuff that you guys wanna see, let me know and I'll continue to incorporate that in just to give you guys a little bit extra knowledge bombs, I guess you could call it if you want them. Knowledge, ideology, whatever you want to call it. So with that, if you guys like the video, you know what to do. Go hit that. Oh, we're going, I think we're going back to the dyno next week to get power numbers on blue. So we'll do a video on that also. But anyways, with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you like the video, you know what to do. Go hit that like button. Black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, sight, and whatever color it might turn for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.